You're listening to the Two Sleuth Podcast, all about the business of dentistry. Hosted by yours truly, Greg Essenmacher, a fixed full arch dental expert and founder of G&A Consult, speaking with industry leaders on the dental landscape from their perspective. Welcome back, everyone. I am really excited. Well, here's the reason why I'm excited. So, my guest today is Jake Goetz. Yes, just like the herd. That's what he said, not me. So I am not disparaging my guest right out of the gate, although I'm prone to it. And I'm going to read Jake's bio here in a second that he sent over. But I know many of you who know me, and you know what I say about marketing companies. What do you call 1,000 marketers at the bottom of the ocean? A good follow-up to lawyers. Okay, I'm just kidding, Jake. Maybe a little bit. Isn't there always a little truth in jest? But yeah, good luck. That's what we're going with today. That's what we're going with. Anyway, so I am excited though to have Jake on today because Jake graduated with a bachelor's degree in professional sales with an emphasis in marketing. And I've got to ask, right out of the gate, I'm going to stop the bio right there. Where did you get a degree in professional sales? Because I think there's only 2 universities in the United States that do that. One is Western Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. Where's the other?
Weber State University.
Weber State. Oh, I thought I knew that one too. All right. So professional sales, he's been in sales seminars, doing group trainings for over 20 years, sold, marketed, consulted in various industries, including hospitality, home services, call centers, software as a service, and dentistry. It's kind of why he's here. And he's an in-house dental marketing consultant and key opinion leader for various marketing agencies, which I love. I can't wait to dive into that. Since 2013, Jake has personally consulted more than 5,000 dentists nationwide. So I think we can call him an expert in that, right? On their marketing to reduce unnecessary spend while increasing collections. Jake's founded GOAT, G-O-A-T, marketing consultants in July of early 2023, providing fractional C-suite executives for dental offices across the country. GOAT consultants support dental offices on marketing strategy, budget allocation, systems and processes, call handling skills, lead pipe management, patient experience. Y'all know I love that at G&A Consult, and holding your marketing vendors accountable to achieve your new patient production goals. Jake and his wife and 2 daughters enjoy living and playing in the mountains of northern Utah. Welcome, Jake. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Greg. I'm excited to be here, especially with your energy. And I've listened to your show several times, so it's an honor to be here with you.
You knew what you were getting into. The crazy thing is, Jake, literally holding marketing companies accountable, pipeline management. I mean, all the things that literally you say in your bio are what we talk about, right? Call handling skills, pipeline management, patient experience, all the things in full arch, which is our lane at G&A Consult. These are the things. These are the things that you do. So I have to first ask, right? So all of our listening audience can learn, how the heck did you find your way into this crazy, beloved industry of dental that I've known and loved for 18 years? Tell us about how you got into dental.
Yeah, I was running a call center back in 2010 to 2012 timeframe. And I managed a team that was fielding inbound calls, and we sat next to a team that was making outbound calls, and it was all just home services. But my job was to train the team on how to answer calls and how to schedule technicians to go out and install and sell these services. And it was fast paced and it was high volume. We were doing thousands of phone calls a day coming into this call center. And a friend of mine was running postcards for dentists, and he said, "Hey, we really need somebody to come and help do a training aspect and help us grow our own sales team." And I said, "Well, I've never really sold marketing services, although I was working for a marketing call center." And so I knew enough about marketing, and I had studied a little bit in college with an emphasis. Really, I was a sales guy though. And I was a sales coach. And he just said, "Look, I just need you to come and teach dental staff how to answer phone calls." And so unbeknownst to him, I said, "Well, I've got a friend who runs a dental office in town. I'm going to see what it's like to train dental staff." So I went, and during lunch, they paid me $1,000 to come in, and I trained them for an hour and a half during their lunch break on typical call handling techniques. And I was like, wow, they were super receptive. They were hungry and like starving for it. I learned quickly though that sales is a buzzword in dentistry. And
it's the S word.
yeah, but the reality is my first day in the sales program at Weber State, however many years ago that was now, the professor had said, by raise of hand, who here has a negative thought when they hear the word salesman? And like 80% of the students raised their hand. And I didn't. I had been selling door to door, and I had realized, like, I'm not taking advantage of anyone. I'm building relationships. And so he said, well, let me teach you one thing that you'll never forget. And that is that nothing happens in this world until a sale is made. And it's your job to help people make educated decisions. And that to me was like light bulb moment. And so as I sat there and I helped this dental staff understand that principle, look, nothing happens until you do your job, until you schedule somebody in. That is sales, whether you like it or not. And so that's what I'm going to call it, because that's my world. And they were very receptive. I accepted the job with my friend after that, like literally within a week. I exited my other company and career path, and the rest is history, as they say. So
I love that. And, the sales aspect, you just took me back to, my very first job was a newspaper route, 10 years old, Detroit News in Michigan. And I picked up a paper route that had 72 houses. I had 2 streets, right? It was 4 blocks, but 2 streets in Metro Detroit, Michigan, in Centerline, Michigan. And you picked up the papers, and then I had to go another 14 blocks in the opposite direction of where you picked them up and deliver those papers. And you still collected back then. I'm 53 years old. You still collected door to door. And so I was all about, at 10 years old, was all about optimization and efficiency. And it was, well, if I collected every week on Friday, boy, that was a pain in the butt. You had little punch cards and everything. Why don't I collect once a month? And then if I'm doing that less often, then I can build up my business. And if I did that, if I gave 1 week of newspapers free, maybe if I gave the Sunday paper free, because that's the one that had all the coupons in it, then maybe they'll get the week. I mean, I was working this thing. I went from 72 to 183 customers within the first year of having this paper out. And I had the paper out for 4 years. So, I mean, then again, I spent a lot of my money on candy, right? And so, all the dentists in the world were happy. Little did I know I was prepping myself to be in dental, but that's sales, right? And then when I was 14, I ended up working in a family restaurant and saw with the gals up front, because they had like the little green apron, and they were selling. The ones that were good were fast, but they also knew how to make suggestions. That's sales, right? And those are the ones that got the better sections, that got the better shifts. And that's what it's all about. And I say to folks all the time now, you're selling yourself every single day, right? Like, are you married? Like, you sold yourself to your spouse, at least the Essenmacher men, right? We know how to marry up. So we were selling ourselves constantly to get a better spouse. So, there you have it. And so tell me a little bit about like that concept, because you talked about it, right? That people are, you're the first encounter you had with those folks on the phone were eager for that learning.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because, at G&A Consult, when we're working with teams, sometimes they're eager for learning for show, and sometimes they really are. So tell me about some experiences you've had when it's like, yeah, they kind of sort of are, but, it's fleeting at best, because I'm sure you have tons of stories.
Too many. Yeah, I'm going to use the one from yesterday. So
Sure.
I had a call with a gal yesterday, brand new employee. She's been with the practice for 2 months. Never been in dental. She's 20 years old, eager and hungry and starving. The office is short-staffed, and so she's just kind of been left to her own devices. And they use Patient Prism software for AI scoring the calls and seeing the quality. And I'm reviewing this and I'm going, wow, she is a train wreck. Just struggling on every phone call, painful. The amount of dead air time, not asking permission to put them on hold, the fundamentals, right? I mean, nobody's trained her. They're just desperate. Do this, answer the phone. Here's how you make an appointment. and coding is throwing her off, and everything that goes into a front desk person's.
I mean, an order taker, right?
Right.
Be right back. Yeah, exactly. No connection, no emotional connection with patients, nothing of that we teach either. Yeah, which you do too, I'm sure.
I
Yeah.
literally played a call for her, and I said, okay, and I'll call her Susan for, anonymity purposes.
Especially since you said yesterday, somebody can go back. When did they record the show? Not when this is published. Right?
Yeah, let's
Save yourself. Save yourself.
so I play this bit, and it's a 4-minute phone call, and 30 seconds in, she goes, 2 seconds in, she goes, oh crap. And I'm like,
Well, here's
You
the
listen-
thing. You just said it too. You play the call with them, right? And
Yes.
they hear themselves and they coach themselves. Yeah, please keep going. But that's so critical. We do that too at GNA Consult. You have to do that. They hear themselves and they're like, oh no.
Yeah.
I know this call. This is not good, because they can teach themselves then. Yeah, please keep going.
Yeah, so within the first 30 seconds, I'm calling for my mother. She's 80 years old. She was told 2 years ago she needed a root canal. She put it off. She's in excruciating pain. Do you have emergency appointments available today? Well, 35 seconds of let me, I mean, never acknowledges, I am so sorry your mother's in pain. No acknowledgement of what was even said.
Right, because empathic listening, right? One of the keys is don't be afraid of silence. That's not the kind of silence. That's not the kind of silence we're talking about. That's okay.
So I just paused it at the 35-second mark of this dead air of her stumbling. And I said, what have we learned so far? She's like, I have Jake. And then she goes on a 15-minute monologue of all of the reasons why she couldn't have handled that any better, and gets all defensive. And I said, well, I am not here to tear you apart. I'm here to give you tools. Let me teach you a few simple transition phrases. So like 4 minutes. And because she had stumbled so many times, starting with just not even listening and acknowledging what she heard, that she ends up 4 minutes later, the lady's like, okay, thanks, bye. And just done, going to the next person on the list. And it was the simplest and the easiest laydown. When she did finally come back after 60 total seconds of stumbling, she comes back on the line and says, well, we don't have any openings today. And she goes on to say, but I did just Google emergency dentists in this city. And have you tried so-and-so? And she refers an emergency patient who needs a root canal, knows they need a root canal, are done putting off needing a root canal, and just said, yeah, you should try that. Thanks, goodbye.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, right? So the GNA method that we teach, right, is the EAZ, empathy, right? To listen first and foremost is a part of that E. The A, which is, acknowledge what they say, answer their question, and ask another question, right? And the Z, do it with a little zeal, right? Those are, if I've got a little bit of zeal myself. And you're really hitting the nail on the head with all of that there. So let me ask you, in a situation like this, in order to earn, right? You had talked about asking permission. In order to earn their trust, in order to put forward and start working with someone like this to where they're open and drop those defenses, because I know that's one of the biggest pieces that our coaches work on is how do you earn that trust with them so they're open and receptive to, right? Because as a consultant like you are, when you're working with these team members, you don't have, you don't really have something like the thumb and the screw to say, well, if you don't, we're going to get rid of you, because it's not us, right? We're working as consultants with clients. So what are some of the tips that you're using? What are some of the key strategies you're using in order to earn that trust? Because it's got to be fairly quick, right? It's not like you have like every day you're working with them for 3 or 4 hours. You're not in clinic, in practice with them, I'm assuming. Right. So talk to my listening audience about that, because I think some of our clinicians, some of our regional managers, some of our office managers, even from the manufacturing side, I think that can be super helpful to provide some value.
Absolutely. So the fastest way, and it's, I got to give you a little history. I sold timeshare to pay my way through college because part of the sales program at Weber State was you have to have a sales job.
And listening audience just went down by 70%. Thank you
Right.
for that, Jake. No, I'm just kidding.
So I'll tell you one thing I learned about selling timeshare is that I didn't want it to be my career.
Right.
And so, but I have never been in such a high octane environment of sales I mean, 100% commission. And they had an amazing sales training program, which I
Eat
love.
what you kill. Yep.
And the one thing that I took away that was the number one foundational thing that any industry, any conversation, any objection handling, any of the AEZ you're talking about and you've talked about before, it all comes down to what you're talking about and what I call the feel, felt, found method. Now, if you've read up on that and know what that is, it's being able to simply say, oh my gosh, Susan, in that previous example, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. You know, I can't even imagine how your mother's feeling. I've never had to have a root canal. If this is a 20-year-old girl who's just barely in dentistry, you can do the feel, right? I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine how she's feeling. But I do know we've had a lot of patients who have felt the exact same way. What we found is that we can always get you in. If you're in pain, that's our job. That's why we became a dentist and we service the community. How far away do you live? Where are you located? Whether you have openings on the schedule
Or not.
if there's
Yeah.
an opening,
You figure it out.
is willing to wait and you can fit them in and you can take care of it. You're going to have no-shows. You're going to have cancellations. And you need to give them a place of comfort. And your chair is the place of comfort. So that feel, felt, found method is a very simple foundational principle. I used it with my daughter last night. Dad, I really don't want to take a shower tonight. And I'm like, I know, sweetie. I know how you feel. It's been a really long day. I woke up at 3:45. And the last thing that I want to do is one more what seems like a chore. Your sister has felt the same way. But what we found is that if we don't, then it makes our morning that much harder. And do you want to be the kid in school that has ratted hair and is stinky? No, Dad. All right, then let's go take a shower. I'll brush your hair and help you get ready for bed.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Like, I used to tell my son that don't be the smelly kid, especially when he was like getting into middle school. Don't be the smelly kid, John. Don't be the smelly kid. So I'll make sure I send him this little clip too from this. You know, he's 33 now. He's going to give me grandbabies soon. You know, it's like, don't be the smelly kid, John. It's true, right? And I love that you talk about that. I was working with one of our, now most of my team members do the training sessions. My coaches will do that. But there is a long-term client of ours, and he's like, I have a new person that's handling the lead calls, and I really want her to have a little touch of the Greg can you. I'm like, okay, I'll do the first 3 sessions with her. And it was fun to flex that muscle again because I hadn't in a little while. And I was working with her, and we had a situation like that. And younger, she hadn't really had the experience of, and she had a call. We were listening to a call similar to that. And it was a gal called like, oh, I've got this upper plate. It doesn't really fit right. And I got this irritation in the upper right-hand side. And, the person that I was training, she was great. And she's like, yeah, I can't identify with that. Cause we talk about, have empathy and the difference between empathy and sympathy. And I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. I'm like, do you have any siblings? And she's like, yeah, I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. I'm like, do they ever irritate you? Oh my gosh, all the time. Do you imagine when she said that plate's irritating her in the upper right? It's a similar irritation that your younger brother and sister. Oh, and you could feel like we do video, we record it, we send it to them. Like you could feel and see the light bulb come on in her eyes. Cause I try to draw parallels, and it's what, I teach our coaches, and our coaches work with the clients and their team members. It's all about making that connection with those that we coach and train, because we're trying to get them to make a connection with the patients, and especially in fixed 12 arch, right? In the all on X game, because these are $20,000, $30,000, $60,000 cases, and the no-show rates are ginormous compared to just general dentistry. And so I love that you brought that forward, because it's so true. It's always about making that connection, right?
Yep.
Get that stickiness, that fidelity, paint the picture. And for, the next generation, if you will, they're different, and being able to adapt and modify learning styles so they can identify with, even though they haven't had the root canal in your scenario or the one that I gave. It's so important to do that. And so for yourself, how have you adapted that teaching style, that coaching style, that consulting style that you found? But specifically now, I want to talk a little bit about on the marketing landscape, because that has changed so drastically. In our lane in Full Arch, like 5 years ago, you just put up a moniker and said, yeah, we do all on X. And, the patients would come flooding in and you could not literally, but kinda. Now the landscape is so competitive, especially with the paid ads, the paid digital ads. It is a super competitive landscape. And it seems like, for every, digit on the finger, that's how many you can find that say, oh yeah, we'll guarantee so many, appointments and, for this. And it's just, the landscape's pretty mucked up. And you've talked about that you help to hold them accountable and really work with those marketing companies. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that could be super helpful for the audience as well.
Yeah, I find that a lot of agencies, they need your direction. And I know you're hiring them to give you direction, but the reality is it is a two-way street of communication, of telling them very clearly and concisely what it is that you need, and ensuring that one of the things that I've taught a lot of my clients is ask them, even if you don't hire. We do a free consultation at coachcmo.com. You can request and we'll do a consult and we'll teach you a couple of fundamentals. And, I'm going to the Rocky Mountain Dental Convention again this year, where I'm teaching a course specifically on how to market, how to spend less and make more. And one of the ways that you do it is you ask your marketing company to repeat back to you, now that you know, what do you believe is necessary to put into my ads? What keywords are you what's the plan from here? And if they can't give you a detailed response, or if they give you a detailed response immediately on your very first phone call, and they don't say, but let me double check, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
You joke about the marketing companies at the bottom of the ocean, right? The reality is I worked for them. I helped co-found them. I know, and I have a CE course that I teach that's 2.5 to 4 hours, depending on what block they need me to fill. But I have a condensed version and a longer version, and it's how to hold your marketing company accountable, the questions they don't want you to ask. And one of those questions, if you really want to know how your SEO is doing, ask them to show you what percentage of your website search traffic, your organic search traffic, is coming from organic, non-branded keywords. Because branded keywords is Dr. John Smith.
They're looking for you.
They're looking for the person.
Yes,
Sure,
the person.
heck better be showing up at the top of search.
Exactly.
If they're searching the name of your dental practice, that is a branded keyword, right?
If they're looking for dental implants and they find you that way, then your SEO is working.
Yes. So knowing what percentage of my search volume is non-branded keywords versus branded keywords, that in and of itself is very telling if you have a good relationship with your SEO company and your website company.
Yeah, if they can give that information simply by asking, and if they play the what do they call it? The deflect, distract, and if they do that, then either they don't want to tell you, or their results are so poor they're not gonna tell you, because they know that they're not delivering the goods. I love all this. Okay, Jake, as part of the program, every one of my guests play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On? 3 rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready to play?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
My own.
He's just straight up. I know. I don't even have to qualify as my own. All right. I like it. Good. No qualifier. My own.
And I'll tell you that, sorry, I don't want to interrupt this.
No, please. God, no. You can go. You can say whatever you like. This is just a back and forth. It's conversation.
8th grade life skills teacher walking into his classroom. He's we're in line walking into his classroom, and he says to me, Jake, you've got the worst breath I've ever smelled. Right after he had complimented Tom in front of me on his hair and Jenny in front of him on how beautiful her sweater and scarf were, I'm like, oh, and I knew this guy. He was my step grandma's brother. So he was my step uncle, my step great uncle. And he's like, wow, Jake, you have the worst breath I've ever smelled. Welcome.
In the 8th grade too, which we know, I mean, those are the best years of our life, middle school, when everything is out there for the world to hammer us down. And yeah, okay.
I walk into his class and he starts his class off by saying, welcome to life skills. Lesson number 1. Jenny, what did I say to you when you walked into my class today? And I'm like, oh, freak, here it comes. And she goes, oh, you complimented me on my scarf. Tom, what did I say to you? Oh, you complimented me on my hair, and he's like, and it is a great hairstyle. I love it, And then he starts walking his way over to me. And I'm like as far in the back corner, leaning back, covering my mouth, self-conscious as any teenage, pubescent teen, right?
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, here it comes. And he goes, Jake, what did I say to you? And I'm like, you told me my breath stinks. And I'm like covering my mouth saying this. And he goes, I did, didn't I? He reaches in his pocket and he pulls out a pack of extra gum. And he says, would you like a stick of gum? I'm like, yeah, I would. And he handed it to me. And he said, lesson number 1, a friend will tell you if your breath stinks, but a true friend will offer you a stick of gum to make it better.
Oh.
And my whole life, I've always said nobody's breath is worse than mine. And I just go in with that assumption and I try my best to stay on top of it. And he's told me multiple times since. He's still alive. And he's like, I was like, it was a metaphor. It was an analogy. It was not your real breath. And I'm like, oh, I know, but I have 2 daughters who are very honest with me and a wife who's very honest with me. And they've also told me that I sometimes have that. And so I always have mints. I always have gum and I do my best. But yeah, my breath, that's the worst encounter I've ever had because
I mean, and I'm telling you, just like a true friend will tell you if you got some schmutz in your teeth, like, just tell me, like, do I have a bat in the cave? A booger, like, hanging, for those that you don't know that phrase, right? You got to help a brother out. Like, just tell me, right? Rather than letting me go around and have people like stare, like, is there something going on? Is there something wrong? Yeah.
A great book that any team who's struggling with personalities and conflict, which every team seems to be, but a great book is it's called Feedback is a Gift, and everybody should read it. So that's one that I highly recommend everybody read as a team because it teaches you the power of feedback being a gift. And
I love it.
That's a gift.
Love it. All right. Question number 2. If you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
Number 9. Right up front, I got hit in the face with a baseball bat when I was 9 years old. And it was right as that tooth had come in fully. And I got hit in the face playing a game with my cousin. It was an accident. It wasn't abuse. But I've had a false, tooth that it's come out off a couple of times and it never sits right. So one of these days I'm going to get that fixed. So I anticipate one of your listeners to call me and say they want to fix it for me.
Number 9 at night. I mean, we know a few dentists, so I think that might be helpful. I like it. Okay. And question number 3, if you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, and no, you can't choose your own, which one would you choose and why?
I would probably choose the AI call coaching and scoring analysis tools because I actually had the business model. If you're familiar with Gong, and when Gong's sales coaching and their entire methodology and systems came out, right when that launched, a year before that, I had written up that entire business plan that I wanted to be. I was going to call it the greatest hits line, and it was going to be recordings of the greatest performed phone calls that you could go in and listen to splices of the best greeting, the best discovery questions, the best presentation, the best call for close. That's one that it'll plague me the rest of my life because Gong their valuation's like $8 billion right now. and specialize it specific to dental coaching and training.
Fair. I like it. Well, Jake, I want to respect your time and my listening audience's time. Is there anything I haven't asked you during our conversation today that you'd like to share with my listening audience?
Honestly, the biggest thing is that if you think your marketing is broken, just like I had to learn that it was my own bad breath and not somebody else's, your breath may stink and you may need a stick of gum in your own way of handling your marketing leads. And it's not a cop-out. Like, genuinely, I have come into thousands of practices and noticed that it was not their marketing team's fault. It was the way that they were communicating with the marketing team and the way that they were training their team on how to handle the leads coming in. There's no such thing as just bad leads all the time. There are some outliers, but we don't manage our businesses to outliers. So if I would say anything, it would be invest in your ongoing people training and coaching, because that is where you're going to see the needle move the fastest, and improve your communication. And if you need help and guidance, then talk to somebody who can teach you how to hold those marketing companies accountable.
I mean, I think that's so savvy, right? So it's communication, both internal and external. And we talk about that, right? So the internal really is learning on how to talk to patients, because that's internal communication and within your own team. The external is how do we communicate with our vendor partners, the marketing companies, to let them know they either are or are not hitting the mark for what we need them to do, because they don't know if they're hitting the target. They're not out there in the field. Think of somebody who's calling in the military, that's calling in targets, that's sitting somewhere in a bunker, in Nevada. And they're not out there on the battlefield, like taking the flights and dropping the bombs on the targets, right? They can't see, they don't have visual other than what they're seeing through the lenses or you got to be able to give them the feedback and let them know, are they hitting the target or not? And that communication apparatus external is just as important as internal in getting the training. That was really savvy for you to close the show with. Thank you so much. My guest has been Jake Goetz with goatcmo.com. And he is the everything when it comes to communicating and marketing and being able to turn that marketing, spend less, get more. I love it. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Jake. And how do they get a hold of you? I think I just gave the website, which is probably a great way. Is there a better way, or is that the way you want people to reach out to you?
No, that's by far the easiest. Submit a form right on our homepage. Our phone number also on the homepage receives text messages to my support team. So if you would like to just fire a question fire over your website. If you need someone to run an audit of your socials, run an audit of your website performance, it's all through goatcmo.com. Yep, that's the easiest way.
Excellent. Thanks so much for being on the show. It's been very informative and entertaining. I appreciate it. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Greg.
Be sure to tune in to our next episode of the Tooth Sooth podcast. If you need help with converting lead calls into consults, closing consults into more full arch cases, or creating a more strategic marketing message and branding for your practice or group, follow me for more tips, or reach out to G&A Consult for a discovery call today.